pulls through. There's no reason why you shouldn't be getting phone calls right now. You've got a good search volume. You've got a nice, good, clean, professional-looking site on here, and you're giving people every opportunity to do it. I think we're probably, my guess is that you're probably going to need some prices on here. You've probably got a couple of different types of people who are looking for airport transportation. One type is a type that wants the kind of executive one. So they're more the higher end ones. Price is not quite that important to them, but you may want to have you might want to experiment with the types of vehicles or fleets that you could offer, like a kind of a private limo or a private Lincoln Town Car. What is that? $69 into the major hotels or whatever, versus like a shuttle type thing, which may be $15 per piece or something like that. And maybe give people a little bit more specifics on that end of it. I know that I know, and probably most other people are pretty much the same. When you kind of shop around, you kind of want to see prices, and I know it can be kind of difficult to do in this type of niche. But if you call around and kind of see what other people are offering, it'd be interesting to see if that increased your call volume on that end of it. But I think everything else is looking good here. I think it's probably just one or two little tweaky things that either I mentioned or haven't thought of yet that will really help turn this around. So thank you so much for sharing that with the group. I really appreciate it. Okay, when you add surround, yeah, that's one thing you can do right there is this. When you add surrounding area pages, like I did for my Mobile Mechanic Chicago, and if you haven't looked at that yet, that's in the experiment section. And what we did is we actually were able to double the amount of call volume there. And again, that came from Steve, who I referenced earlier, out of Vegas. That was his suggestion, which was awesome. And all we did is we just took the Chicago surrounding areas. So when we come in here and so we just go to Google Maps. And then at Google Maps, we'll just type in Chicago, and I just want to show you what I mean here. Chicago, Illinois. So we already had in position 1. We already had Chicago, Mobile Mechanic, and then Chicago's a fairly big area. So we just started adding additional pages that we literally just copied the home page in verbatim, less the geotags just at the bottom of the page. And I go over all this in the experiment. There's 2 videos in there. So it's very, very easy work to do. There's nothing original that you need to really come up with. And we just started adding some of these larger cities in here. Cicero, Oaklawn, Naperville. We added a whole bunch. Arlington Heights. We even did like Schaumburg, which is a little high up. But we did that, and we literally went from 169 unique visits to 299. So we almost doubled it. And we didn't do any backlinks, and we ended up being on page 1 for these. So it's like Mobile Mechanic Cicero. So, and there we are at number 1 right there. Now these really start to add up over time and over the area. So I'm not even sure where that city is. What is it? Sanford. I've never even heard of that. So we can take a look at the map there. That might be one way to help increase the call volume, is to spread out a little bit. I'm not even, where the heck is that? Okay, maybe I don't know. Texas? I have no idea. No. Okay. Wow. So I'm just going to guess from the size of the map. It's probably got a population of around 150,000. Around 150,000, maybe 200. I don't know, around that end of it. So it's not a huge populated area. But it gets quite a bit of search volume. That's actually pretty impressive. So you may not be able to add. I don't see a whole lot of. Let me zoom in on it. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot of other areas. This is pretty much specified here, if I've even got the right area on that end of it. So let me move on here. Okay, so do you add the pages in bulk? Yeah, we do. We add them right away one shot, or do you drip feed them over a period of time? No, we don't. What we did specifically was we first got up the site on page 1, position 1, just exactly how I outlined the course, and then the second phase of it is we just added all the surrounding cities, the ones that have the the little bit larger populations. We didn't include all the little tiny areas in there. All right, so greatest challenge, cool. Answer is the website itself. Okay, cool. All right, Charles, appreciate that. And like I was saying earlier, I definitely don't want the website design of it. We just saw a good one right now with the airport transportation. That's a really nice looking site. That's how we show you exactly how to do in the course. But if you're stuck on that, you get stuck on, can't figure out how to put the header in, or something just doesn't, you just can't figure it out. We don't want you to get stuck on that. Contact my support. Don't abuse it like, hey, you build the site for me. That's not what that's intended for. But if you're stuck and you don't follow you can't follow the instructions, you can't quite figure out how to get the header or a logo in, or the background into it, contact us. Let us know how we can help you out with that. We'd be more than happy to do it on that end of it. And as far as the easier theme to kind of come out with, it's a little bit more friendly, and takes, it's a little more like what you see is what you get. We are done with that. There's just a few little minor changes and testing to do with it. So we're looking at maybe releasing that possibly on Tuesday of next week. And of course that's free to all members. It would just be popped in the members area. Okay, okay, this is a good question here. AdWords sells for $20 to $40 a click, depending on the city. Home Advisor sells for $20 a lead, which would be a shared lead and 1.5 times more for an exclusive lead. The client's invoice could run from $100 to $2,000 plus, depending on what is needed. I think the average invoice will probably be around $200 to $500 range. Okay, so in other words, the client will get probably somewhere around $200 to $500 revenue per closed lead. Can you help kind of guide and figure what my leads are worth on here? So there's a couple ways to do this. The first one is the AdWords is a good indicator. That's what the market's bearing. And I noticed that you put the range in there, 20 to 40. So and that depends on the city. And usually what AdWords shows in there for the price is usually more the upper price. You can get lower pricing, and it doesn't necessarily go on top of the page, but over to the right. So let's just go with 20 as a base point for AdWords. Home Advisor is $20 a lead, but they're 1.5 times higher for an exclusive lead. which means around $30 for an exclusive lead. And then HomeAdvisor has a range too, right? They're not just one's 20, it's probably 20 to 40 or something like that. And so the client could maybe on the low end, minimum get $100 from a client, and a high end maybe a little over $2,000, and maybe average somewhere in there to $200 to $500 in there. So if the client, for example, let's say they were to get 10 calls and you charge $20 a piece for it, that's going to cost them $400. And then you need to kind of ask them how much out of, if you got 10 qualified people to call you that were specifically looking for your services. They found one of our sites online, so they're specifically looking for you. It's a targeted lead. They then pick up the phone to call you, so they're taking action. So it's a very targeted lead. How many of those do you think you could close if I gave you 10 every day? How many of those could you close? And let's just say that they maybe only close, maybe the client said, well, we'd end up closing 3 out of 10 usually on average. Okay, so even if it was $300 times 3, that would mean they get $900. And if I'm charging them 20 times 10, that's $400. It's still profitable to them, hopefully. I don't know what their overhead is, but that would be a 400. I'm charging you, $20 a lead times 10, so $200. So I'm charging you $200 for the 10 calls, and out of those 10, you close 3, and if they're even on around $300 a piece, you're getting around $900. Maybe maybe we'll say $600 to $100 to $1,500, and I'm charging you $200. That's a pretty good deal. That kind of relationship is going to go on for a long time, right? I mean, what business owner in their right mind would not be willing to invest a couple $100 every week and get, $800 to $1,500, sometimes more, in revenue and their business back? So that's kind of the starting point. And then you kind of start to kind of push it up from there. So I would, based on the data that you're kind of giving me here, I'm probably thinking that a pay-per call is probably worth on the higher end of more like $30 to $40. And I gave the example that they could only close 3 out of the 10, and that's assuming kind of a little bit worst case scenario. It's a pretty targeted customer who actually goes to the site, picks it up, and calls it. So I'd probably say around $30 and up on here, and you'll find out if the market can bear it or not, or if that particular client can, or you've got 2 or 3 sites up and that's what you decided to charge, and you're coming back and all 3 of your clients are like, nah, this is not working for me, and so on and so forth, and you dig a little bit deeper and it's like, I'm just not able to make a profit off of this, and then it's too high. But based off the fact that AdWords and HomeAdvisor, their bottom is 20, you got nowhere to go but up from there. And I'd say if you're not going up too high, too fast, that's why I said 30 or above.